Hello and welcome to episode 37 of the Cisco Tech Stories podcast. Believe it or not, we are starting our fourth season already. Hello, Nico. How are you?
Hello, Tristan. Good.
Cool. So we thought that it would be a good way to celebrate our fourth year by looking back at our previous episode and highlight our top 10. We'll include a short snippet of each of those episodes so you can listen to them if you didn't do it already.
It's also, honestly, because we had different vacation periods and not enough time to record a guest together, as a lot of people are out during the summer as well, right? Let's be honest. But it's crazy to think it's our fourth year doing this. My personal takeaway from doing this podcast is the amount of things I learn in other technologies and the awesome people that we have in Cisco that I get to meet and discover, and maybe I would not have met them otherwise. So I'm really happy to be doing this.
Yes, my key takeaway is also the amount of technologies and diversity that we have in the company and in the industry in general is just mind-blowing. We've been from standard networking on routers and switches to cloud-native computing to AI to quantum computing. It touches everything. So to get this started, Nico, what would be one of your top episodes from the last 3 years?
I may be biased, but I have a preference for both episode 1 and 2, where, okay, we started and maybe the sound editing was not the best yet. And we interviewed each other, right? So you did episode 1, which is my favorite, because if I say the episode where I'm the guest to be my favorite, that would be quite narcissistic, right? So you did episode 1, the part of that thing in my pocket, where if I can spoil it a little bit, you had a data center, if I can call it like that, of a service provider. You were troubleshooting random crashes, and you discovered that anytime technicians would go in there, some stuff would crash, some blade would crash, and then the result would be that people at home would lose internet connectivity. And it's just that human presence and people not especially doing, anything in particular. So that was like one of the craziest troubleshooting story we had, I think. And similarly, because that's basically, to be honest, how we got to start the podcast, by discussing our craziest troubleshooting tech stories.
Flashback to episode 1.
Fact number 1. These events only happen Monday to Friday during usual business hours. Nothing happened during the night, nothing happened during weekends, and also there was a public holiday in the mix, and nothing happened on
Hi,
that
Habib.
public Hello,
holiday.
Habib.
Hi, thank
Fact
you,
number 2.
Tristan, thank you,
In
Nico,
one
for having me
event
here.
or
Can you
location,
introduce yourself a
we had
little bit?
two
Like,
side-by-side
where do you work in
devices,
Cisco? What
and
team? What part of
on
the
each of
world?
them,
How you joined Cisco?
one of the cards crashed at
Yeah,
the same
so
time, the exact same time. We're
my
talking
full
seconds
name is
between
Sheikh Habibul Haq.
crashes.
So
People
if I'm
call
looking
me
at it
as
correctly,
Habib. In short,
it cannot
I
be the
am
end users
with
at home
Cisco
causing
for
something.
the
Like, cannot be
last
a script kid at home doing some
11
attack, nothing like that.
years.
It
I
has to be
joined
with the
in
business people there at that
2014.
service
Before
provider,
that, also
or
I was
something there at the service
working
provider during
as
business hours
a
at least.
contract employee with
Yeah, it had
Cisco.
to
In
be.
fact,
It had
if
to
you
be something like
calculate,
that.
if you add up those
To
2
confirm
years,
this,
it's almost
we
close to 13
looked
years.
at the
if
badging
you add
logs, so the
me
one
as
from
a
the door
contract
when you
employee with
enter the
Cisco.
building.
So
We
I
also looked
joined
at
as
surveillance
a
cameras
TAC
inside the
engineer,
data
and
center.
then I
We called
moved
the head end. And
as
it turned
the
out that
escalation
every time
engineer,
a
team
crash was
lead,
observed,
as a
there was some
technical
type of
lead.
human
So currently
activity
I'm
around the
working
device.
as a senior technical lead in the enterprise
Where I was the
space.
guest on episode 2,
Specifically, I
this was
deal with
during COVID drama,
architecture
and I was
routing
tasked to solve an
fields.
escalation,
So
and it's a case that went on
visually
for
impaired
a lot of months, and I was
since
told,
my
you have
birth.
1 week to fix it,
So
but
how I
you
work
cannot
is
go
I
on
work
site, you
by
cannot
listening to
talk to the end
computers.
users who are
So
facing the problem, because the end users are
we
doctors and
call them
nurses,
as
and they have
assistive
better stuff to do than
technologies.
talk to
In
you, and you
computer,
cannot
we
request more
use
outputs.
screen
So basically, you
readers,
just have to
and in
read what
phone
other
also
people
we
have
use
done,
screen
and
readers.
figure out what people have
In
missed,
Windows,
and just
there
solve
is
it
a
out of
screen
thin air
reader called
in a week.
JAWS,
So
and
that was,
narrator,
quite a challenge. I was
NVDA,
a little bit
and on
stressed, but
iPhone we
it's,
have
the
VoiceOver,
discoveries
and
we
Android
made
we
were
have
quite funny in
TalkBack.
that one. So
All
it's a
these
hospital
devices
environment,
are
and
normal
the way
devices.
nurses
The
and
same
doctors use their
computer,
phone is
same
not necessarily the
phones
way
that
the
the
IT
people
department
who
planned
are
that it
able
would be
to
used.
see
So let's leave
use,
it at that
but
about
there
the
are
root cause.
additional
So that's it for me. That's my
features,
top.
apps inbuilt into those devices using which I work.
Flashback
So
to
it's the same
episode
computer.
2.
So if I put JAWS
And
screen
after
reader,
those tweaks,
I'm
the
able
engineer
to
asked,
read
with a
what's
bit of
on the
hope, like, is the
screen.
issue
In
better
fact,
now?
that software provides
And
me
the
audio
partner was
feedback
like,
about
well, we
what's on
don't
the
know.
screen.
We're not
So
getting a
that's
lot
how
of
I
feedback
do
from,
my daily
from the
work.
hospital anymore.
That's how I read
And the
case
hospital IT
notes,
staff was
how
like,
I
guys,
read
we have a
any
lot better to
documents,
do
any
right now.
chart messages that you
And
send,
we
email
only
messages
heard that
you
afterwards.
send.
But the
That's
nurses
for
were
reading,
like,
right?
guys,
So
we
for
don't even use your
typing or
phones
writing, how
anymore.
does that go?
They're so
Yeah,
bad
that's the same. So if
we
I
try to get to a
open a
window where we
notepad,
have cell
for
coverage,
example, and if
we
I
just
open an
shout in the
email
corridors,
and
anything is
whatever I
working better
type,
than your phone.
I hear
Pretty
that
bad feedback
letters
at this
back.
point.
Exactly.
For
But we
example,
didn't
if I
have the
type,
feedback
hi,
then,
how
right?
are
The
you?
feedback was,
So
oh yeah,
I will type
we haven't heard more
HI, how
complaints.
are you?
So that gives you the perspective
HWAR,
of
You hear, oh yeah, there's
and
no
there are
more complaints from the
spaces.
field.
All
But
that
actually on the
feedback I
field,
get
there's so
with
much
my
complaints,
screen
people are
reader.
not even using your
Given
product
the question
anymore.
mark.
That's a
It
lesson
feels like
on
for
how
the
to get the
studies,
real
this
feedback
is
and
somewhat feasible, right?
lack
to
of
study
feedback
this way.
is not
But
a feedback.
for work, it
And I
brings a
got
lot of
told,
questions because
literally
people
clear,
do not know
black on
you.
white,
So people
you
are going to
cannot
want
go
to
on
have
site,
a phone call or WebEx call. They're
because,
like,
you know,
take control of my
if you
screen.
feel you
How does it
would
work
get
on a
better
daily
logs
basis
yourself,
with
you're
those
not coming on
aspects?
site. You
See,
cannot
most of the
talk to
time,
the nurses.
screen
They're
sharing
honestly
is
fed up
a
with
fundamental
Cisco
problem for
engineers asking
visually
things.
impaired persons
They
because
really
the
have better stuff to
screen,
do.
when you share a
And
screen, your screen
basically,
is
you're not going to go
represent
through
as
many log collection
pixels.
cycles anymore
So
because
screen
we're tired of
readers
that
will not
as well.
have access to
Just
that.
fix the issue right now.
You need
Till
to solve
now,
it, but
it was
blind.
difficult.
Exactly.
Now I
And
get
when I heard that,
some
you know,
help from
my hand was
AI
like,
to
that's not going to
recognize
happen. I'm
the
sorry, like,
pictures,
I'm
what
out
is
of magic.
displayed on the
I would like to
pictures.
do magic,
And
but
most of the
I'm running
time,
out. I
wherever
looked in my
it's
pockets,
possible,
no
I
magic there.
avoid
So
the
I was in a
sharing
bad
if
spot.
it's
Right?
possible.
Indeed.
By asking all
So
the
what I do
outputs
in
in
those cases,
advance,
like, okay,
asking
let's
some
take
more
a step
outputs.
back, right?
It
Like,
can
let's
be a
see
large
all the steps
show
that
tech. Yeah, I mean,
that
there
were
are
done.
some situations where I ask my colleagues if it
Yeah, and
gets out
those
of my
were
hand,
very
if it
funny
becomes
episodes and
pretty
very
critical.
interesting
It's just
episode,
by
both of
asking my
them. In
colleagues
fact,
what's there on the
you mentioned
screen
it a little
so
bit,
that
but
I can
this is
get
how
hold of
we
that
started
thread
thinking
and
about making a
continue
podcast about
from
those
there.
stories.
Yeah,
We were just
yeah,
discussing,
you
you
are
and me,
correct.
our cases, and
The
we're
word
like, okay,
screen sharing
man,
is the one
you are
of
working
the
on stuff that's
challenge to
crazy.
work with.
People need to know
With the
about
screen
this. And
shares
you said,
because it's
why wouldn't
represents as a
we
pixel,
just record
and
that
screen
and make
reader
that
has
available
no
to
way
everyone with the
to
podcast?
provide
And we could
that
interview guests
interpretation,
in Cisco.
the
It's a
feedback
large
for
company
that
with
remote
thousands
screen
and thousands of
and
employees. So
read back
many
what
other
is
people like you
displayed.
and me must
It
have
cannot
different
access
stories.
it
So why not?
programmatically
And we
as
did
it
that, and look at
accesses
that.
our
3 years,
computer
almost 4
and
years later,
provides
we are
the
here, and we still have
feedback.
And
guests
I've seen
and stuff
AI
stories
describe
and
what's
new
on a
technologies.
screenshot, but
It's
even
just
then it's not
fascinating. So
great yet.
that's
Like,
cool.
what's your? It's doing
Favorite
now a
episode?
decent job, but then it's only for
Yeah,
screenshots,
so
right?
for
Live,
me, episode
live screen
33
is
with
just too
Liz
much
Rice,
for an
title
AI
is
to describe you what's
Rise
going
and
on, I
Shine of
suppose.
eBPF,
Yeah,
which, by the way, I love the funny
it's
titles
correct.
that we
So,
come up with
yeah,
every
live
time.
screen is
So this is
too much
about
for the AI
Liz
to
Rice, who
describe.
is
But
a
especially
major
what I need is,
stakeholder in
when we go
eBPF.
on the
A
screen
new
is
feature inside
mainly
the
the
Linux kernel
terminal
that
output.
allows
There
better
are other
security,
couple of
better
ways also I
networking,
use.
and much more. And she
Sometimes I
explains
tell
that
customers that I'm visually
in very
challenged,
easy
and
terms. So the
whatever the
feature in
outputs
itself
they
is quite
ask,
complicated
they
and
copy
allows
it
you
and
to
ping
do a
it
lot
to
of
me
things.
also. And
But
if
she
I
explains
need
that
it,
really well.
I
She
just,
is
in fact, I
a great
have
talker.
coded
She wrote a book
using the
about eBPF.
Cisco
She
internal
made
chat
Cisco
API
live presentation about
to
eBPF. She knows a
capture
lot
the
about the subject.
screen
I like
within
this
the gap
episode
of
in
5
particular because
seconds, 10
eBPF
seconds, which
has
I can
become
adjust.
quite an
So it
important part of
automatically
my
sends
day
that
job, and the
back
way she
to
presented it
the
makes
AI
it very
vision model,
understandable for
and
anyone. And
I
I
get
thought this was
the
really one of the
recognized
highlights of
feedback
our
as well.
set of
So
episodes
this
so
is
far.
the
If I was able to understand it, then she did a
enhancement
good
that
job,
I have
because
implemented
I'm not
for
good
my
with the Linux
workflow
kernel,
so that
and
I
she
can
took us
reduce
through what it
dependency.
And
is
before
in the Linux
AI,
kernel,
what
why,
has
and
Cisco
then what is
done
changing
for
for
you to help
container
you do your
networking,
best
and
job?
then
Like
why
what
this is
tools
changing
has Cisco
networking
provided?
and security
what
completely, right?
software
So
has Cisco
that was
provided
a
to you?
really
Cisco
nice journey.
provided,
Like
so
going
when I
from something
say
you don't even
screen
know what it
readers,
is or
all
don't
the
understand, and
screen
then
reader, we
understand
have
how it can
access to
impact
screen
everything.
readers.
That was super nice.
How you have open source browser and the
Flashback
paid
to episode
applications, how
33.
you have open source
BPF
applications, paid
originally
applications.
stood for
We have
Berkeley
this,
Packet Filter,
all this
but that was really confusing
in
people
with
because
regards to screen
eBPF
readers
can
as
do
well. So we
more
have
than
open source
just
screen reader.
filtering
There is
packets.
something called
So
NVDA,
forget that it
which
ever
works well,
stood
and
for
there is a paid screen
Berkeley
reader
Packet
called
Filter.
JAWS.
Just think of
So
it as a
Cisco
standalone term,
InfoSec
eBPF.
has
What it allows
given
us to
permission
do
to install
is
NVDA
to
as
write
well, and
bespoke
we have an
programs that
inbuilt
we
screen
can
reader
load
in
into the
Windows
kernel
Narrator,
and
which
change the way
is
the kernel
sufficient sometimes.
behaves
But there is a paid screen reader
dynamically.
called
We can
JAWS,
have bespoke programs to
which
do
is
different
used a lot.
things in
It's
different
a
circumstances.
standard screen reader.
Individuals
JAWS
can write
is
their own
used
eBPF
across the world
programs, or they
by
can
visually
have
challenged people.
bespoke
So Cisco
policies
has
rolled
a
out to individual
enterprise-wide,
machines
company-wide license
based on
for all its employees
dynamic
to use
eBPF
JAWS.
eBPF programs. And
Cisco has also provided whatever is needed. For example, we also use a braille display. That's called braille display. Braille display to put it in words. How I can. So it's like a monitor for you. So for people who can see, they use monitors.
He was like,
so
if I could
braille display is an added advantage.
I wouldn't have to
where
worry about these
whatever is displayed on the screen is presented in braille. Have you heard of? I don't know whether you have heard of braille script. Braille is a system of dots,
it was a bit of a
which is used by visually challenged
that the kernel mailing
persons
list,
to
folks, kernel
read with
maintainers
their
were not
fingertips.
super enthusiastic
So if you
about.
see in the
But
conference rooms,
Daniel Borkman saw it
any
and
other
said, I think there is something
rooms,
really
there are
interesting here.
braille boards.
So Daniel and
So I
Alexei
can
put
read
their
them
heads
with the
together,
fingertips.
thought
It's the
about
same way, whatever is
how could
displayed on the
they
computer screen,
take this
I can
idea of
read
dynamic
it with
programs
the
within
help
the
of
kernel
braille display,
and
apart
kind of
from
make
or
it
along with the speech
acceptable.
that's provided by the
They
screen
hit on the
reader.
idea of
So
extending
I also have
Barclay
a
packet
braille display
filters.
provided by
So
Cisco
those
Attorney
already
as well.
existed. They allowed
Okay,
you to
and so those
take a
brailles,
network
those are
packet and
screens
run
that
some
do
code
little bumps
on
that
it,
change for
or
every single
triggered by that
character and
packet.
sign that's on the screen, and you can just put your
And
finger
they
on
had
it
this
and
idea,
read
well,
that.
what if it could be a bit more general purpose? Could we
It's a
attach this
separate
to
device.
other
It's not,
events in the kernel?
when I say braille display, it's not
And
the
essentially,
same monitor
what they
that
came up with
we have
is
that's integrated with our
ability
laptops.
to
It's a device, separate
dynamically
device. It
change
connects
the way
via
your kernel
USB or
behaves.
Bluetooth,
So you
and
can load an eBPF
it's
program
also driven by
into
the
the
screen
kernel,
reader. In
attach
order
it
to
to
run
all
the braille
kinds of
display, you
different
need to have a
events
screen
and
reader. The
run
screen reader
programs.
sends
Those
that
programs can
output to the
observe
braille
what's
display
happening in
so
the
that I
kernel.
can
They
turn
can
off
even potentially
speech
change
if
what's
needed
happening in the
and just
kernel. If
read
it's a
with
network
my
packet, they can
fingertips.
And which
modify
one do you
the
prefer?
It
contents of the
depends on the
network packet, or
situations
maybe
because
even
braille
drop it on the
displays
floor.
are
But
smaller.
because
We
we can
have
do so much more
40
than
dot
just
and
packet filtering, we
80
can
dots
hook
display.
into
That
literally
means at a
pretty
time they
much
can
anywhere in
represent
the whole
only
kernel.
40 to 80 characters. So
For my next
it takes a
episode,
lot of
I think
space.
we're on the
Braille
top
takes a
4
lot
right
of
now.
space.
I would mention for
Reading
completely different
40
reasons
and 80
episode
characters,
19 with
sometimes
Richard Yates.
it's
We knew, he had a
inefficient.
long career,
Sometimes
right?
I
He's a
use
famous individual
audio
within Cisco,
because I
and
can
so
read
we knew we
with
wanted to
speed.
interview him.
I
We
can
didn't
review the
really
information
prepare it,
faster
right? So
when
this
compared with
episode is
braille.
called Richard's
So
Time
braille is
Machine Roller
sometimes
Coaster
useful
for
when
a
I
very good
need
reason.
to
He
read
took us through
through
time.
some
This guy
code
saw
because
basically
code is
all
not
the
regular
mobile phone
English.
technologies
So
from
again,
3G
screen
to
reader also
5G. I would even
provide
maybe
us
say
character
from
by character
2G.
reading, but
He was really early
sometimes
in the
reading
technology.
the code,
And he
which
explained
is
to us,
or any other
all
information which
the
is
career
not
changes he had. So it was a great
in
career
regular
talk,
English
as
makes
well as the
sense with
technology
braille
changes.
displays.
And then he
So
hit us
now
at the end
let's come
with
to
a
the
very
meat of it.
serious
So you're working
diagnosis
in
he
tech,
got, and he
who
basically
decided
gave us
to
life
start
lesson,
studying for
right?
CCIE?
When you
Is
hear
it
from
you
Richard,
who
it's hard to
decided to
not
start
be
studying? Did you
impressed,
get pushed
motivated,
for it? How did
inspired,
it
and to see life in a different manner. So we didn't know what we were going for when we did that interview, and we were there for our money. We got what we wanted and more.
Yeah,
To answer your question,
that's true.
there was no
That
process
episode was really a highlight
CCIE
for me
in
because
lab
I
to
was
be
expecting a
delivered
talk on
for
5G
visually
and
impaired
cloud
persons.
native deployment for
Any
5G,
written
stuff
exam,
like that,
we
which
have a
we kind of
process.
did, which was
Cisco,
great. But
the
indeed,
partnership,
here
the
what
person
hit
you
me
to
most
deliver
was
those
indeed
exams.
Richard. His
So we have a
personality
process
is a
where
great
they
guy. He
call
has a lot of
requesting
experience, and then,
accommodations.
like you
So
said,
what
he
we do is
has
we
a
put
lot
an
of lessons
application
that
to
he
person
teaches us
view,
during that
and we
episode. So
inform
if
that
you
we are
haven't
visually
listened to it,
challenged,
listen,
and
go
we
and
tell
have a
them
listen.
we
You
need
might learn
some
more
extra
in a
time
live
and
lesson
a
than you
reader
would
and
in the
recorder.
technology in
So
itself,
reader
and
and
that was
recorder
really
is who
really
reads
interesting for
the
us.
questions to us, and he records our answers as well.
Flashback
So
to
they
episode
provide
19.
a separate test room. This is how the written
Private
exams
company,
work.
and this guy is selling
There
to
was
the
no
U.S.
challenge in this.
government,
This is how I did
but he's also
CCNA
selling to the Free
and
Syrian Army.
CCIE
He's playing
written
both
as well.
sides.
But in those
And
exams,
so I worked
there
there
are
for like
some questions like you have a
three-
lab simulation,
about 2
right? But
years,
it's not a
2012
proper
to
terminal app. So
2014.
can the reader
And
read
I had a
that? Can you
conflict of
like
interest
type
because
the
I would
commands
come in
and
and work
everything?
Yeah,
up there
I
in the
mean,
morning.
those are in the small scale.
And I would
The
see
readers
things,
will
they
be
kept
able to
seeing him
read. When they
running
select
in office on the
scribes,
TV.
usually
And
they select
I know the words
who
going on, and
knows
and
has
they're
a
Syrian anyway.
basic
So let me throw
understanding
that
of
in there too. The guy's
networking
Syrian, and
devices,
he brought
basic
all his
operations of
family
networking
and
devices.
cousins and
So
everybody
how
over
to
and
go to
put them to work
terminal,
with his company,
I mean, at
even if he
least he
didn't like them.
understands how to
So
follow our
I
instructions.
give him
Yeah,
that
they
respect.
will be
But
able
what
to
I didn't
read.
like was
So
playing both
that's how the
sides and waking
scribes
up
are
in the morning
selected.
and you see all these
But
kids got
when
bombed
it
and killed
comes
and things
to
like
the
that.
lab,
And then
there was
I
no
get this
process in place to
call
deliver the
from
lab exam.
Syria,
And that is
from
when our
I guess the
managers,
Free
our
Syrian Army,
director
that
got
hey, this
involved,
box
and
it's not
we worked
working.
with the
It's not
certification,
working at
learning and
all.
certification
And I go,
team,
well,
and
what's
it
wrong
was
with it? They
a
go,
great
well, the building
collaboration,
got hit by a
and
tank
we
last night. Can you send me a
implemented
picture? That
a
box is all
process
melted out. I
as
said,
a
I can't
pilot,
fix
so
that. I'm not
which
going to be
I
able
was
to
the
fix
first
this. But
candidate
I had a
to
conflict of interest there, though,
use
because
that
these
utilize
kids
that
are,
process.
So
not
you were the first
surviving.
visually
I'm
challenged
like, no, I
person to pass
can't.
CCIE.
And
Is
I'm
that
just having a
correct?
hard time
So you
sleeping.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
Doing, I'm
And
supporting this
can you walk
in
us
some kind
through
of
how
way,
that day went?
right?
So when you
On the
went for
side
the
note,
lab, how did that
the U.S.
happen? Like,
government's
what
over
were
there
the
for the Army.
steps that you
They got their
went
systems
through?
too.
We had a process.
He's selling to both
Usually,
sides.
CCIE lab,
Slightly
what
different
happens, you will
suitcase,
have remote
right? And
access.
it was
As
two
I told,
ENODs that they
remote
would run out
access
there.
with the screen
So
reader is
I got tired of that.
difficult task.
And Here's a funny story from that. Troubleshooting that, not that box, because it was blown up. We'll have to send you another one. But they would call me at 3 in the morning. I was in Baltimore at the time, and I would be out of the.
So the proctor had a dedicated laptop on which
I'm an
they
old school
installed
from
a screen reader after
time,
verifying
and I'd be out
security.
there, but I'd be on call.
After doing
And
all
sure
the
enough, at
security
3 in the
checks,
morning when the party's
that
going
it
good,
does not contain any other software,
here comes his phone
other
ring.
things that can
We don't
compromise
have no
the
data on
integrity
number
of the exam
12.
they
And
evaluated.
okay,
Then
I'd
they
whip out the
permitted me to
laptop, sit in my
install
car.
screen reader. Then again, they took
things
a
out.
security
Your link is down.
evaluation,
And
did a
their
security
satellite
evaluation of
backhaul
that
link, and
laptop.
it would come back to
So
the U.S.
we
for
validated
the
that
other end.
laptop works well a week before my exam. Then
What's the
on
next
that
episode for you?
day, the
Yeah,
proctor
I also
came,
wanted
and we
to
had
mention
also
the mini
recorder,
series
reader,
that
and
we did
recorder as well
on
there. Because
quantum
in
crypto.
CCIE, you
During
have
this
to read
podcast,
a
we
lot,
also
and
put some
also you have
episode
to
a
configure
little
a
bit
lot.
out of the
So we
normal
had
format that we have,
we
just
had a
interviewing
scribe so that I can
one
read,
one
and
engineer about
if
their day
whenever
job. We did
I
a couple
need,
of mini
he can
series,
pick
and
in
we did
and
one
record
on
the
quantum
commands
crypto,
or
and that
the
was really
commands they
interesting.
told. And
So the
also
first one is
they doubled the
episode
time that
27
they gave
with the
us,
title
as
Key
it happens
Insight with Fred
in the other
Detienne. So
exams.
Fred walked
So
us
on the
through
exam,
why quantum
I went,
computing poses a
proctor
risk to
logged into
current
my
cryptography, and it involves a
using
lot of
my
math behind it. But don't
the
be
lab
scared if you, like
ID,
me, are not good
and
with math,
he
because
logged
Fred is
into the
fascinated by
allocated part.
crypto and the math
Then
behind it, and he's able to
it was
explain that
normal
in
as
very
it
simple
happens for
terms
others.
that even
For
I
me, the
understood
only
it. Sorry, I'm
difference was
stealing your joke
the
from just
access
a minute
was
ago, but
provided. I
really,
was
Fred
able to
does a
read
good job
all the
at
questions
explaining
which
that.
they
And
were
after
displayed
that,
on the
it's also
screen.
a
I was
very
able to
current
read all those
topic with
questions, and I was
quantum
able to access
computing
those devices
coming
via
to our day
terminal
jobs
using
more
a
and
terminal
more and more.
software.
It's
You
important
mentioned
that
that
you
they
know
doubled
about
the time
the
of the
risks
exam, but if I
and the
recall
benefit
correctly,
that this
the
brings.
exam is
And
like
the first
6
episode
hours,
of
maybe
the,
more.
this
So
mini-series,
does that mean that it was spread
27,
across
was great
2
about
days?
that. And also, I
Yeah,
suggest
it
you guys
went on 2
follow
days.
everything from Fred Detienne,
See,
like his Cisco
if
Live
the design
presentation,
is
because Fred and
3
Redkit is really a
hours,
big
they
subject here in Cisco. So
added
Redkit is our
50%
network
extra
automation and
time to it.
diagnostic solution.
That's
Watch
4.5
that, because
hours.
that might be
Lab
helpful
is
for you,
5
and it's also
hours.
free. So
They
go and check that
gave
out.
me 7.5 hours. So 2 days.
Flashback to episode
Was it stressful
27.
to go to bed
And there are two
being
main
halfway
series of
in your
algorithm. One
exam?
is
Yeah,
RSA
it
based, the other
was
one is
stressful
elliptic curve
because
based.
the
RSA is
design
not
is
P,
the
so
easiest
it's
one
modulus
comparatively
exponentiation.
because
And
there is
the other one
not
is
much to
elliptic
configure
curve.
there.
It's a
I mean,
little more
you
complex.
don't know
I
even.
would recommend,
I mean,
sorry
you might
for
have
speaking
failed
for
in
my
the
own
design
shop. In
itself.
this case,
Whatever
go
you
check
are
my
going to write
presentation,
tomorrow
my
might
Cisco
be.
Live
I mean,
presentation.
it's
It
even
shows
if
the
you
math
do
in
well,
details.
if you
But
don't pass in the
essentially,
design and
in
you
elliptic curve, we
pass in
deal
the
with
lab, it's not a
multiplications,
valid
whereas with
result.
RSA,
But you
we
didn't
deal
know.
with
You
exponentiation.
didn't know at that
And the
time
fact
if
that
you
we're
passed the
dealing with
design part,
multiplication
correct?
in
They
elliptic
didn't
curve,
tell you.
No, I mean, because
you keep
all
the
those things
computation simple.
are
The
kept
computation is a whole lot
confidential
faster
because
for
I
the
mean,
same
even
level
others
of
also
security
don't
as you
know,
would have
right?
with RSA.
I mean, even if
So
others
essentially,
are doing
if you
the
want to say
exam,
the
if
same security
even
level,
they
RSA
in
would
the
recommend
design,
that
they
you
won't
use
tell you have
2048
passed,
or
we can proceed, or you
4096
can
bits
leave. So
modulus
yeah.
It
keys
reminds
and
me of
really
people at
massive
Cisco
numbers.
who passed the CCIE
And
before year
elliptic curve
2000. It was
allows
also
you
in
to
2
use
days.
256
And it's
moduli,
so stressful.
so
Like
modulus
some
length.
guys, they go to bed and they know that
Unfortunately,
it's possible they have enough points in the
both,
first day,
they
but
are
they're like,
susceptible
I
to
know
a
I missed
quantum
some
computer
questions,
attack.
so I have to do like
You've heard
100%
about
perfect on
qubits,
day
which
2.
are the bits
And like
in
the
a quantum
stress of
computer.
it, I just can't
And
imagine. I'm just glad it's back
elliptic
to where
curve have
they've
been made the standard
Yeah,
because
but that's
faster,
for us,
better,
they cannot
just
do
mostly faster
if
for the same
you add up
security. Unfortunately,
7.5,
with a small key size,
almost
it is
it's
more sensitive to a
13
quantum
to 14
computer
hours.
attack. And
This
so
I
if
don't
you're
think it's
worried about
pretty
performances
practical for
and
anybody,
all
for
of
even
that,
for a
stick
proctor,
with
for a
elliptic
candidate,
curves
or
because it's better than RSA.
the scribe,
But if you're
the reader
concerned
and
about
recorder who
possible
comes to
quantum
assist me.
computers,
So
then
that
you
is
have
why
to
I
go back
think
to
they have
RSA in very large
they
keys.
came up
And
with
even
2
that will
days.
not
It's already
protect you for a
nerve-wracking in
very
8
long
hours,
time
so
once we
yeah,
have
more.
a
I don't
quantum
think it's
computer.
humanly
But
possible.
it will push
Yeah,
the
it's
horizon a
impractical. I
little.
think you will exhaust yourself.
Then we
and
have
I think
episode
your
28,
energy
which is
will
the second part of
deplete.
that mini-series with
yes.
Tom Sigari.
Yeah, CCIE was like
Tim
one of the most
Sigari,
stressful
and
days
he
I had
answers
when
a
I
question on
exited
how
there. I was
quantum
just
computing
empty. I
actually
just wanted
works.
to lie down down.
The first one was on quantum crypto, and this one is more on quantum computing in general, like explaining you what a qubit is and things like quantum entanglement, which once again, before starting the episode, I had no idea what it was. And Tim, in like a 1 hour, even less,
scenarios. I mean,
less than 1 hour, managed to give you a good picture on what it is, how it works, very simple terms and super informative, and also super exciting to see things that are
was
totally
like
changing the way
nostalgic.
that computing works. So
resolving
really
those cases,
scratching
or I
everything
was
that you know
answering
about
those
computing and
questions
use
to
a totally
customer.
different
I was
angle
feeling
to
like
do
that.
things even
that
better
is
than
how
they are
I
today.
was able
So
to
go
keep
and have a
myself
listen to
calm
that
and
episode.
composed.
And
It's
also
like
Tim
I'm
has
troubleshooting
great
a
Cisco Live
customer's
presentation
network.
once
That's
again
what I felt.
on
That's how
that
I
specific
programmed
topic.
my mind.
So if you
So
want
that
to
I
know
don't
more, even after
deviate
the episode,
and
go
I
and
don't
check
lose
his
my
Cisco Live
composure.
presentations.
And let me ask
awesome.
the elephant in the room question: did you pass on the first attempt, or
no, episode 28?
So the first attempt
Property 2 is
just
entanglement, and this is a
the
mind bender.
familiarization.
The idea
Because,
that
see,
two
for
or
visually
more
challenged
of these
persons, what
particles can
happens
enter
is
into a
how much you
special
describe, we
relationship,
will not get
such
the
as the state of
first-hand
one
experience,
instantaneously
because the
affects the
difficulty
state
is
of the
you
other.
will get
so you're not
labs
teleporting a
outside. You
particle,
might
but
have
once you pair them in a
labs,
sort, you entangle them is the
even
right word.
so
When you
Cisco
measure one,
also
you know the
has
state of the other.
practice
That's
labs,
exactly
but those
true.
labs
So
are not
then,
accessible
as you
to the screen
mentioned, this
reader,
can be used for special type of
so I have to follow my
exchange
own
called
methods to
teleportation.
practice
And
what
then
I
this
wanted
leads
to
to
practice.
another myth,
So even
the
I cannot
idea that,
purchase
because
rental
these
racks
states
from
are
outside. So I
instantaneously
didn't get a
reflected no
feel
matter
of
how far
the
apart
environment will
these
be,
particles
how the,
are, well, therefore, what's
how it
sometimes
looks
said
like.
in the
My
media is
mind
that you
didn't
can
get
transfer information faster than
that
light. But
situation
unfortunately,
registered. So
that's
the
not
first
true.
attempt was
Einstein was
registering
absolutely
that
correct
environment
in
into
that,
my
is
mind,
that nothing can
and
travel
that I
faster than
feel
light, not even
confident that, okay,
information.
this is how it
What
looks.
happens is
And
when you do
second
this
attempt, I
teleportation, you
strategized,
have a
okay, this
random
is the
state
case, and
that's
that's how I
reflected
have
at the
to
far
tackle
end,
this.
but it's
And
not
so you got
yet
it at the second time,
information.
right?
It's just
Yeah.
random state. You
Okay.
don't know if,
So
for
that was a
instance,
bit
very good
there can
because
be, these
for
particles
me, it
can
took
be
5
entangled
attempts.
in one of four ways.
They
They
put
can
it
be
out there,
fully in
and it's
sync.
exactly like you.
One
It's okay.
electron
I
spins
guess I
up,
had
the
it
other
much
one
easier, but
instantaneously
the first
spins up.
time
Or when
you
they're
think you
entangled,
know,
they
but
could
then
be in a
you're not
reflective
fast enough.
state
You don't know how the
across
exam
either
works,
the
and you just
X,
need to get
Y,
used to
or
it.
Z
For me, it took
axis, in
even
which
a few
case
more
you're going to
attempts
have the opposite
to make
happening
it.
at the
So
far
really
end.
big
Yeah,
But you
congrats on
don't
that.
know, because at the
Yeah,
moment of
congrats indeed,
entanglement,
because that was
two
the
of
same
these
for me.
particles have
So
come
the first
together.
attempt, even
Without
exactly like
measuring,
you said,
you
that
don't know
people can
if
tell
they're
you
entangled
how the
in
exam
which of
is.
these
Having
four
it
what are
firsthand is a
called bell
totally different
states.
experience,
So without
and
having that
even
information, you
for
can't
me, it
decipher
was
the
really a
meaning
challenge.
of
I
the
just
state
cannot
at the
imagine how
electron
much
at the
more
far end.
difficult
If
it
it's
would
spun
be
up,
in your
does that
situation,
mean
of
that the
course.
far end,
So
and
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
say
I mean,
electrons
I
spin
had
up, which
to,
represents
for
logical
instance,
state
the
of one.
CML.
So the
I
electron at
used
the
the
far end,
CML.
is its
CML
logical
is
state of
also
one
not
the
accessible
actual
with screen
information
readers.
you're looking to transmit,
Fortunately,
or
I
does it
know a
need
bit
to
of
be
coding.
rotated
You call
across
it vibe
180
coding, part
degrees,
of
bit flipped
steering
across
the
the
AI.
x-axis, the
I
y-axis, or the
built
z-axis in order to
a
get the
customized
information you're looking to
CML web
transmit. So you
UI
have to
so
do
that
an
I can
indirect
practice
measurement, send
using
information that
the
represents the
API
bell state.
endpoints
Then you
that
need to
the
know how,
CML
then you can
provides
make the
access to.
proper
I mean,
correction
the
by
terminal
rotating across
that
the
CML has
respective
is
axis,
again
and
is
then
not
you have your
accessible with the
information.
screen readers.
But
So
you need to
I
do a
was
little
looking
bit of
how
data
I
transfer
can
over
make it
physical
accessible.
circuits. So again, it's not
Fortunately,
happening faster
came
than light.
across this cockpit. Cockpit is,
For me,
as
after
you are
that,
aware,
I would put the
it's a new
episode
UI to
21.
access the
It's a
Linux
hard knock
systems.
life. I
Server
was at the
admins
Cisco Live in the
usually
knock
can
team, and
access the
I
Linux
interviewed the
system
rest
using
of the
the
knock
cockpit
team
UI.
there. So
And CML
sorry
also
we couldn't
has
have
that
you there,
cockpit
Tristan.
UI.
But it was the
So
perfect
it was
opportunity to
very
do
much
an
accessible.
in-person
So
interview.
based
It's
on
quite
that, I
crazy
also
how
built
you
the
just have
terminal
like a
to
group
access
of
Cisco
friends basically
devices,
who are just
whatever the devices
discussing,
that are in
sharing
the laptop
anecdotes.
in the
But
CML.
half of them are
yeah, that
distinguished
was also
engineers
a
at
good learning
Cisco.
experience.
They all have
I mean,
at very
going
least
forward,
a decade of
CML also
experience.
became accessible.
Not all of them actually
I mean,
are
I
from
am
Cisco,
hearing they have
but all of them
implemented
work in
some
major events,
accessibilities
and they
in
make it sound so
2.10
easy. Like
CML.
we
Let's see,
deploy a
but
network in
for
5
my
days,
exam,
and
I
we
had
just
to
rip it off
build a
in 1 day
customized
after
web
the
UI,
event,
and
they make
also
it sound
I had
so
a
easy.
dedicated
While if you
UCS
had
server
to
here,
lead that kind of deployment and
I
do
had
it
to,
yourself and
before
lead a team
building
doing that, it would
CML
be the
web
scariest
UI,
thing
I
personally
deployed
I would
all
have
the
to do.
routers as
But being
VM
part
and
of
put
that
them
team,
on a
I mean, it's
flat
just easy, right? You know what you
vSwitch
have to
as if
do.
they are
Everyone
talking
is
to each other,
smart.
So that is how
if you make a mistake, other people will catch it.
Is this
people
so? You
care
mentioned
after
that
each other,
CML
and
became
every year we
accessible,
take a
or
lot of pleasure in just
there's
improving
some
the
level of
workflow a little bit.
accessibility
Like
now
how
in
can we
CML.
have
Is this
less
after your
obstacles, less
feedback
hassle next
based
year,
on your
and have a
experience?
more streamlined workflow?
CML
Because every
team
year we also
heard
have to
they
deploy more
wanted
stuff.
to
There's
make
new
it
product, we
accessible
have to
since
test
beginning,
new stuff.
but
So
yeah,
there's
it took
chances of
them some
stuff
time
going
to
wrong,
make it
and so
accessible.
we have to
I think,
improve the workflow a
I
little
would
bit
have
every
been
year
pretty
to
happy they
compensate
would
for
have
that.
made
And
it
it's personally a very,
accessible
very
before my
interesting
CCIE, but
experience.
at least
those guys
they
can troubleshoot
are making
anything,
it
basically from
accessible in
a fiber optic
2.10.
problem, BGP
I mean,
issue,
I
a
don't know
NAT
still how
system,
much
firewall,
accessible, I
like
think
those guys,
will
they
be
each have their
releasing
favorite
this
technology,
week
but
or
they're
the
so
next
used, they have so
in
much
the month of
experience, like
April.
any
I
problem.
mean, there is a
The
release
most
candidate
complex
available. I
problem we
didn't
have,
get time to
someone
test
is
it,
gonna
but
figure it out.
I'm
And
hoping it
every
will
year
be
we root cause
significantly
a
acceptable.
problem, and it's not
But
always on
I
Cisco
don't think
stuff. We
the
find
terminal
a
will be
Microsoft problem
accessible
one day, or
because
we
I have
solve
to use
a
the
bug
same
in
web UI which
macOS
I have
because
developed
we're
based on
experiencing it there,
the
and then you have the best people
terminal
together,
style.
and we know
I
someone
just
at
want
Microsoft, someone
to
at
rewind
Apple.
a little bit.
We're gonna
Just
fix it.
imagine
So
this
that's,
experience
to me, the most
you have.
entertaining week of the
You
year.
basically
and
had
it was
to
a
write
pleasure
your
to
own
interview those
tools
guys.
so that you can learn.
That was definitely a fun
and
episode.
eventually then get
And
to the
I've
exam.
only
with
had
the
the chance to go to
additional
Cisco
talents that
Live
you
as a
have.
guest,
So
not like you
it's a
where
lot
you were
more
actually working.
hurdles
For me,
that
it was
you had
like
to go
going
through
on holidays
than
to see
other
exciting
people. And I
technology
think
and
this
exciting
deserves a lot
people
of
and
respect
talks.
and,
But
and
yeah,
appreciation for
there's a
what
lot
you
behind
put
the
on there.
scenes, and this
I
episode
mean,
gives you a good
it's
glimpse on
pretty
what's
difficult.
actually
I am in Cisco.
happening
People
behind
appreciate
behind
me.
those scenes.
People have a lot of respect, but very few here how I work. Still, they don't understand how I work.
So
but
maybe
just
Elena,
they
can you
know
take us
I
through
work.
what
How
of the
it
CSAP, the
happens,
sales
very
associate that
few
we
have
have has
idea
to do
about
to
it.
go
And
install a
even
switch?
also
Because
listening
there's
to
some scanning, so
screen
we
readers,
are
I
tracking
will be
everything
joking with
where
my
everything goes, right?
colleagues and
So,
friends. I
based on
will
what Andrew said
remove my
about,
headphones
the
and put my
barcode
screen
and the
reader
label of the
out.
switch. So there's,
So
if
within
you
2 to
physically
3
see it,
minutes, they
it has
feel
two
like
barcodes, and in the middle you
it's
just have a
robotic.
label
It's
with
pretty
text
difficult
within
to
just our
get
convention
accustomed to it.
with numbers
Also,
from
right?
all the switches that
People
we've ever
feel
deployed.
that's
So
my
we
head
essentially
starts
have
aching
a
how
check-in
you
station
listen.
that
I
we
mean,
call it.
I tell
It's
them
just a scanner
it's like a
like you would see in any
I mean,
supermarket,
even when you
a barcode
see
scanner that you
the
just
screen for a long time,
essentially
your eyes
we
also
we've
get
created a
strained.
system
So
where
instead of
everyone
your eyes,
has
my
within
ears
based
get
on their Cisco
strained.
username,
So how
you get
you
your own
look after
barcode
your
for the
eyes,
user
that's
itself,
how,
and then
I mean, in the
because
same way,
the
I
switches
also
themselves
have
also
to
have the
look after
barcode, you
my ears.
basically
Yeah, it
check
makes a
yourself
lot of
out, let's
sense
say,
indeed.
as within your
And
user, and then you check out
what would
the
be
devices
some
or
advice that
device
you would
that
give to
you're
other
going to be
people that would be willing to
intending
go
to
for
go out and
CCIE
deploy,
but don't
and that
want
kind
to
of
because they don't
changes
think
the
they
status
can
on the
because of
Andrew
any
system to
disabilities
say
that they
check
could
out,
have?
and so we know
Is
that
there
it's
anything you
outside
want
of
to
the
tell
knock
them?
I
physically,
also had
and
the
then
same
basically
feeling before.
if
But
either at the
what I
teardown
heard
moment where
or
we're
what I
closing up shop,
experienced,
or if
both
for
are
whatever
same.
reason
What
we
I
send
heard
someone
and
out
what
from
I
the deployment team
experienced,
to
both
try and
match.
install a
If
switch, and
you are
maybe the
putting
network
effort,
drop might be
there will
damaged, so we
be
can't
people
plug it
who
until they
want to
fix
help
that,
you.
or
So
the power
whether they
guys
can be your
haven't gone through that area
colleagues,
yet,
can
and
be
hence
your
we wouldn't be able to power
leadership,
up the switch
anybody
and,
who
be able
notices
to
that
ping it
you
and
are
know where
putting
it is and know
your
that it's
honest
online,
and
or
sincere
if it has
effort,
any
there
issues,
will be
then we ask the
certainly
deployment
people
team to run
around
back to the
to
knock
help you.
with the switch
So
that
my
they
colleagues
intended
are
to
there
deploy,
here for
and
me. I
basically
mean,
do
in
the
fact,
opposite
my team,
sort of
I
system
tell
and just
they
check
are
it
like
into the knock
for
so that
me
we
my
can track
extended family.
at least whether it's
So I
inside
mean,
or
they also
outside,
help me
and so
because
that if
when I was
anyone
looking
says, oh,
through
where's
this
this
UI,
kind of
if I
switch,
open a web page,
then
any
it's very easy
UI,
to track and
there is no
at least
directional
know if it's inside or
awareness
outside.
for me.
You've done
So
a
if
good
I
job
open a
with
web
that. It's not
page
just as
for a
simple as a
screen reader user,
supermarket. They've
it
got
will be a
hazard tape
top to bottom
down on
or
the
bottom to
floor
top.
that spells out,
So if
have
you
you
tell
checked
me
this
what
or
is
checked
on the
in?
left side of the
Or
screen
checked
or
out,
what is
they
on the
make
right
sure
side of
that,
the
that
screen.
you make
So it's
sure
a
that everyone
linear web
knows,
page
because
is a
to your point
linear reading
earlier,
for me.
you
So
want to
because
make sure
I
everyone's
got the
trained
help
and
from
knows what
my
to do.
colleagues
And the other
also
thing I
just
noticed the
to
other
so
day,
that I
speaking
will
of
be
maps
aware
too,
how to guide to the
you now
sky.
have a
So
legend printed
how
in front
what is
of
to the
the
left,
check-in
what is to the
station
right,
with all the
especially the
icons that the
GUI
people will see on the
application,
map.
the
That was helpful
manage
for me because I didn't know what all
application. So they were
those
patient
icons meant. Like,
to
that's
tell
a
me
useful thing to do.
when
And
I am navigating with the keyboard,
even
when I
I
reach
could
the
go deploy a switch.
right
Yeah, of
side, when
course.
I reach the left side. So I have to just by heart it, even though I was
And then,
not directionally
following
aware
on that,
in which side of the screen
next
some
episode that I
certain
would
menus
like
are
to
located.
highlight is episode
Yeah, I
25
mean,
with
to
Roberto
answer your
Petrillo,
question in
who
short, if
introduced us to
people
some funny
observe
adventure that
you
he
are
has
putting sincere effort
worked in
and
tech and
you
in
are
PCert.
really into
Roberto
it,
is quite
you
a character, and I always smile when I hear him telling his stories. He's great at telling stories. He's very fun, and they're also very interesting to hear about technologies and products that you might not have worked before with. For instance, the ESA and SMA appliances that he mentioned in one of his story. So go ahead and listen to it. It was episode
you will find the
25,
resources, whatever
ransomware.
resources you need. But yeah, I also want to clear one thing here. If I was not a Cisco employee, it would have been difficult for me because even the affordability of the exam cost itself is pretty high. I mean, considering the uncertainty here, I need not to pay anything, right? So as a Cisco employee, I get certain attempts, certain free attempts. So all that financial burden was removed. That financial stress that I need not spend from own pocket. So all those things matter, because if I was outsider, even though I had this ability to learn and practice, since I was not able to afford that much the financial thing, I still doubt whether I would have ventured to invest that much money to get a CCIE.
When you were telling your story, I mean, what came out in my ears is to other people, what's your excuse, right, for not even trying? The only good excuse I would say, if someone is working for a third party or freelance, and it costs money to study for CCIE, to have the lab equipment, etc. So I think that's a good excuse. But I've heard like Cisco employees, who have all the advantages we have, like, oh no, it's too hard, or I don't think I can make it, which to me I think is mostly excuses for not putting in the work. Because I've seen people who I was not sure they could become CCIE, but just through hard work and motivation, they got it. So hard work pays, and that's exactly what you said, right? You were like, oh yeah, but I have facilities at Cisco. Cisco helped me. Like, it's not just me, but still, a lot of people have those and still are not studying for it. And you had so many obstacles that for you were not so much obstacles. Like, yeah, I'll just put hard work and it's going to compensate for that. And you just compensate a lot with hard work. The exam is not available for disabilities. And yeah, it's okay, I can work on it. Like, this mentality of, it's not a problem, it's not an obstacle, let's work on it. I think that's so powerful. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if Cisco provides, if we have here, we are in Cisco provides a lot of resources.
This is the result.
And in order to grow yourself, why we should not invest and why we should not utilize the opportunities that we get. So that was my mindset. I think you might have heard, I mean, since you are not here in Bangalore, and you might have heard. So it's like all other folks, including my colleagues and my leadership, so they celebrated as if their happiness. So my happiness was as if it was their happiness. They were so happy. So which also makes grateful for all of them to express my gratitude to them.
There's another question I have to ask is, do you plan, maybe not now, but in the future, to do a second one? Or you're like, I'm done?
Yeah, CCIE, yeah, certainly I will plan. I want to plan it as soon as possible because I am already 39. I mean, I don't know. People say after 40, your energy will gradually decreases and your ability to study, your ability to sort of cope with that stress becomes reduced. I don't know how much scientific it is, but generally it is said. I mean, I don't know, but I just want to make in a couple of years, I will finish another one, at least CCDE I'm aiming.
Wow, okay, that's impressive.
A lot of fun in what
I was completely the opposite. When I was done with my CCIE, I'm like, never again. I'm good.
What's your next?
I would think about episode 35, CCIE with a twist.
How you do your work. Is there something that you think is missing that would help you work better in better conditions? Like something that you are lacking today that would help you?
And it's a wonder to me how he can already do his job. And he does it well because he's very known and famous. And
usually
he passed the CCIE lab exam in less tries than it took me. So
usually it is meant for
but the guy's so brilliant that it's not that surprising. We learned afterwards he's technically not the first to have passed while being visually impaired, but he's been the first in a very long time. So the current exam format was more design questions and more dynamic stuff. It was actually not adapted to visually impaired people, while the very old original CCIE exam was, because you had a proctor there. It was a more personal one-on-one exam. So it was probably easier to adapt. But it's been like 20 years that no one visually impaired passed the lab, and he was the first one because he worked with the learning at Cisco people to make the exam adapted to
if you have that
so he
universal
got a bit more time, he got assistance, he got all his voiceover technologies, and he just passed the exam. But even with that, it's still amazing to me how CCIE is already complex enough, and then try to do it with your eyes closed, and you will see the kind of challenge that represents. So that was a lesson in basically a life lesson, knowing nothing is impossible. That if something is not possible for you, you can make it become possible, and if you come at a problem in a constructive manner, like a lot of things can happen. The guy was just impressive, right? Everything about him was so impressive. He creates his own AI tools to work better and faster. He just makes stuff happen.
Yeah, indeed. That's another one of those episodes where the personality of our guest was probably more impressive than the technical behind it. It was really amazing to see Abby, amazing to hear what Abby is doing with all the script that he has to write and all the hurdles that he has to go through to do his daily job, but also to go through CCIE, which is just such a hard task in the first place. But he went through it like it's nothing. That was just really amazing. And that's maybe one of the things that we, at least I personally have learned while doing this podcast, is that I was initially starting this for the technical part, and we are doing a technical podcast. You learn about technical stuff, about technical problems. It looks like those are very small changes to do only happens because we have people and on the behind tools, and so that those people can empower a lot more people with disabilities to use them to do their best work, and that should really be the default. Like they should not need to have to write their own API or their own tool to have a simple tool that works for other people to work for them.
They do. What happens is they do it when we reach out, right? They do it, for example.
And can you walk us through how that day went? So when you went for the lab, how did that happen?
But we had a problem is usually CCIE lab. What happens? Because the application or software, as I told, has remote access already developed up to a stage. So if you include this in the phase of your development cycle at the beginning of development cycle itself, so you don't have to invest more resources. They had a dedicated laptop setup. So the processor had a dedicated laptop on which they installed a screen reader after verifying security. Are eligible, but they will not be hired because just your tools and applications are not designed keeping accessibility other things that can
so you heard it here,
integrity
like plan accessibility from the ground up of the application, not as an afterthought, because it motivates.
Not as an evaluation. We validated that laptop works well a week
for me. I think it was great to hear from you. Thanks a lot again for spending time and sharing your experience in working
because in CCIE you have to read a lot and also you have to configure a lot. So we had a whenever
thanks for listening to this episode of the Cisco Tech Stories podcast. You can subscribe to us by searching for the channel called Cisco Tech Stories on your favorite podcasting app. We're also present on the Cisco Podcast Network channel, where you can discover other podcasts from Cisco. Feel free to leave us comments or questions on Spotify. Thanks, and see you next month.
ID and logged into the allocated part. Then it was normal as it happens for others. For me, the only difference was the access was provided. I was able to read all the questions which they were displayed on the screen. I was able to read all those questions and I was able to access those devices via terminal using a terminal software.
I think we have 9, so do you have an episode to close the top 10?
Well, yeah, actually I even have 2, so that's gonna make it the top 11, I guess. It's another of those mini-series, but in fact it's a bit of an unexpected mini-series. It's one that we didn't plan, so that we happen to have 2 episodes that are talking about a similar topic, but we didn't plan it that way. And that's the series on cruise ships. So we have 2 episodes that talk about deploying network and Wi-Fi infrastructure on cruise ships to those massive machines with extreme conditions, extreme weather, and once a boat has left the port, once it's offshore, you have no room for outages. So everything must work without a glitch to make sure that guests have all the safety and security and networking and internet connectivity while the cruise is going on. So we've got 2 episodes, with one of it talking about the Wi-Fi deployment. That was episode 15 called Cruise Control, another funny title. And then we have episode 36, Smooth Sailing, where we received a couple of guests, actually 3 guests from Cisco Professional Services who have been deploying network infrastructure on boats while they were in the dry docks. So with very short timeline, because as you can imagine, a boat that's in a dock, so not sailing, doesn't bring any money, so you don't want to have that boat sit in that dry dock for a long time. So the timelines were really strict, and they were able to deploy a massive amount of network equipment, configure them, and make sure that everything works in timelines that were crazy. It was also great to have multiple guests doing a similar type of work, so working on boats and have their different perspective and opinions, because while this was for similar projects, they weren't exactly the same, so some things work. It was great to have them on the show, and that's the mini-series that I like a lot.
How does it look like, the data center on a ship? Is it like a rack that you can prepare offshore and then bring on the boat and you plug it and you're good to go. Like somewhat mobile.
They configured everything prior, like Yanni said, in a staging area, so they could then box them up, put them on the ship. So when we got to dry dock, everything was already there. The funny thing is, though, most of those configs changed on site. They actually made design changes during our cutovers, but it was helpful to at least have the right version of code and the base configs on there. But we did change quite a bit around during the cutovers to meet some on-the-fly design requirements that came up during the cutover.
We actually had a great help from a Cisco partner for the staging phase. We did go on-site for staging, and we did configure everything and get everything ready, the software versions, testing all the Wi-Fi components and all that. But as Joe said, once that was packed and shipped to kind of a dry dock area to be installed on the actual ship, design changed a little bit, so we had to go back and change some of these configurations and kind of do it during the dry dock. And the dry dock is a very stressful period of 3 weeks where the ship is in dry dock and everything must happen in those 3 weeks and everything must finish the last day, because after that the ship sails, gets customers on board, and that's it. And any delay, like of a day, 2 or 3, is like a huge loss for everyone involved, Cisco and the customer. So this dry dock operation was really something interesting I had never experienced before. In my entire career, I was not under that kind of sort of pressure to deliver at exact time. And it's not just the network, guys. When they do these dry docks, they revamp everything. So they do anything that they can on the ship, because it's opportunity to replace all the carpentry, all the electric stuff. Any retrofit that ship needs happens during those 3 weeks in dry dock, not just the network gear, which is what we did. So we had like 1,100 people on the ship working different trades, different types of work, coordinating the project managers, coordinating everything. It was really a kind of a well-oiled machinery, and it was executed really well.
That's making it a top 11. A bit like you cannot choose between all your kids, of course. Here it's hard to choose between the episodes as well. I think all our episodes are great in some way or form. They all have their individual strength and learnings that we have each of them. I'm glad that we could have this top 11, let's say, list of episodes, and I'm sure that in a few years from now we will have another top 11, probably when we will reach 5 years, maybe 10 years, who knows. We'll see if we get there.
I think you revealed a bit how we choose our next episodes. We both look for a great person to interview, and there's still a bunch of those in Cisco, and also look for a technology we have a lot of questions about, because we want to learn while we're doing the interview. And then we discover the story of that person as we go, kind of. But if people really have, an idea of a technology we haven't covered much, or a Cisco person like they know and they want us to interview, feel free to hit the comments on Spotify. We actually had one. A person said, "Oh, you should interview Chris Gabrielson," which I know very well. He's in my team, so it was easy to reach out. But it might have been a long time before we thought about him, because we can't think about everyone and interview everyone. So if you have any questions or proposal, feel free to hit the Spotify comments. We do read them.
Like you mentioned, it's a little bit of a blessing and a curse of working in a great company, in a large company like Cisco, because we have thousands and thousands of talents. And while I am sure that we have people that know everything in the domain that we are looking for, it's hard to know everyone. So indeed, if you have suggestions on topic or people that you'd like to see in the episode, reach out. We'll try to do our best to have them. And also the fact that we have thousands and thousands more of people to interview is great for our future, for the future of the episode and the podcast. So I'm sure we'll find a lot more topics that we had no idea about, and a lot more people that will teach us new life lessons.
Yeah, on this, Tristan, unless you have something to add, let's see each other in a month, where we will have our next guest and start our 4th season. And enjoy your vacation, since you're going to go there.
Yes, exactly. All right. Thanks, Nico. That was great. See you in a month. Enjoy your holidays if you have some, and speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.